The Kikuyu are a Bantu-speaking tribe that can be mainly found around the foothills of Mount Kenya in present-day Kenya. And for those of you who do not know, the term Kikuyu is an English variation of the tribe's native name, Kikuyu. Now, according to their creation story, Ngai, the one true God, created the first man called Kikuyu and placed him near Mount Kenya at a location called Mukuru Agadanga. And after giving him a huge share of land filled with rivers, valleys, and a huge forest rich with animals and fruits of all types, Ngai went on his way to the skies on top of Mount Kenya, from where he would usually observe his creation. Also note, before the 20th century, the mountain wasn't called Mount Kenya, it was called Mount Kirinyaga. European colonizers had a hard time pronouncing the word Kirinyaga, and somehow ended up adjusting it to Kenya. Anyway, Ngai would usually go around the earth inspecting and admiring his beautiful creation. But one day, after realizing that Kikuyu was lonely, he took him to the peak of Mount Kenya and showed him the beauty of the land and all the animals below them. Then after taking in the beauty, Ngai proceeded to point at a spot in the middle of the country where many mugumo trees had grown and said, Go and build your homestead on that spot with a lot of mugumo trees. Oh, and by the way, mugumo tree is the Kikuyu name for wild fig trees. Back to the story. Before taking Kikuyu back to the foothill of the mountain, Ngai also said to him, "Sometimes you will be in need of my help. And when that happens, all you have to do is slaughter a goat for sacrifice, then pray facing the top of Mount Kenya, and I will either send help or come myself to help you out with whatever problem you're having." Kikuyu went on to the spot he had been shown, and there he found a beautiful woman Ngai had created so the two could be companions. They got married, and he named the lady Mumbi, which directly translates to molder or creator in the native language. Kikuyu and Mumbi went on to have 9 daughters, but they didn't have any sons. The daughters' names from the eldest to the youngest were as follows: Wanjiru, Wambui, Wanjiri, also known as Washira, Wanjiku, Nyambura, also known as Wakiuru, Wairimu, also known as Gadhigia, Waidera, also known as Wangeshi, Wangari, and Wangui, also known as Waithiengeni. All these names are still extremely popular among the Kikuyu to this day. After the 9 daughters passed puberty, Kikuyu realized that there were no other men on the face of the earth to marry his daughters, so he turned to Ngai for a solution. He sacrificed the goat as he had been instructed, and after praying while facing the top of Mount Kirinyaga, Ngai appeared before him. He explained his dilemma to the creator, and this was his answer: "Go back home, take a lamb, and go to the shrine under the big mugumo tree. Make sure you're accompanied by the rest of your family, and your daughters must bring sticks that match their heights. While there, offer the animal as a sacrifice and pour its fat and blood on the trunk of the tree. Then ask your wife to make a big fire under the tree. After the fire has started, throw the sticks brought by your daughters in, and while the sticks and meat burn as a sacrifice to me, take your wife and daughters back home, then return to the mugumo tree alone. There you will find 9 handsome men who will be willing to marry your daughters, and your people will multiply and fill all the land." When Kikuyu did just as instructed and walked back to the shrine alone, he arrived just in time to see 9 men walking out of the blazing hot red fire. He took them home, and each daughter married the man who was the same height as she was. The 9 families multiplied and gave rise to the 9 famous clans to which all Kikuyus belong. The names of the clans have also been derived from the original names of the 9 daughters, but their pronunciation in the native language is slightly different. The Kikuyu pronounced the 9 clans as follows: Anjiru, Ambui, Ashera, Angashiku, Ambura, also known as Sakiuru, Airimu, also known as Agadhigia, Aithirando, also known as Angeshi, Angari, also known as Adhekahuno, and Angui, also known as Adhiengeni. As you may already tell, these are simply variations of the original names of the 9 daughters. Another thing worth noting is the Kikuyu refer to one another as Andwanyumba ya Mumbi, which can be directly translated to people of the house or home of Mumbi in English. Also, as you may have noticed, this creation myth gets to explain the origin of the relationship between the Kikuyu people and the mugumo tree. To this day, it is still regarded as one of the few sacred trees across the tribe. Traditional Kikuyus even use it for sacrifice and libations during different occasions, such as epidemics, droughts, before planting or harvesting, and also at different stages of the human life, such as birth, marriage, and death. Before looking at the origin of death according to the Kikuyu, there is a second creation myth that first appeared around 1933 and was narrated by a missionary by the name Kagnolo. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. This second creation myth wasn't really shared among the Kikuyu, but it somehow made it into the Kenyan education system under the topic of beliefs and cultures of the Kikuyu tribe. As I said, the myth was narrated by a Catholic missionary by the name Father Cagnolo, who was known to use terrible insulting words whenever describing anything from the Kikuyu culture. For instance, when describing Kikuyu music in his writings, he had the following to say: "With a few simple bars of music, these young imps can amuse themselves for an entire hour." Anyway, according to this father's version of creation myth, the first Kikuyu man was wandering from place to place when one day his knee developed a swelling. The swelling got so bad that he decided to make a cut on the swell. Immediately after making the cut, out came 3 boys and he decided to raise them as his sons. The boys eventually matured, and by some pure luck, one of the sons learned how to domesticate wild animals and therefore became the first pastoralist. The second boy learned how to grow wild animals and even domesticated them, and thus became the first agriculturist. The last son discovered the art of smelting iron and using it to make tools, and he therefore became the first Moturi, a forger of iron. A few years later, the boys decided they were old enough to marry, so their father went back to the nation he was from and managed to convince 3 girls to follow him and get married to his boys. The 3 families went on to create the Kikuyu community and occupied the best parts of the country. End of story. Now let's jump to the next section of the video and look at the origin of death according to the Kikuyu. If you checked out my video on the Kamba creation myth and origin of death, then you remember that I mentioned that the story on the origin of death is surprisingly similar across all Bantu tribes, with only a few variations. Now, according to the Kikuyu legend, there was once a time when men rose again immediately after dying. One day Ngai decided to make the lives of men permanent so they could multiply and fill the earth. So he called his most trusted messenger, the chameleon, and sent him to the men with a message that said men will never die ever again. According to the story, the only condition was that humans should make an effort to bear more children and fill the mostly unoccupied land. So the chameleon left the heavens and headed for the earth, but he walked slowly, extremely slowly, and in some versions of the story, he even stopped multiple times along the way to bask in the sun and feast on flies. Then after reaching the men, they all gathered around him ready to hear what message he was delivering. But as if the years he had taken to reach earth were not enough, he started delivering the message in a stammering manner. The people patiently stood around waiting for the chameleon to deliver his message. But as they did that, God changed his mind and sent the first Nyamidingi with a contradicting message, which stated that men will die and never return. Most sources I came across point that Ngai did this because he was not pleased with the ways of men between the time he gave the message to the chameleon and when he decided to send the bird. That said, while sending the bird, he gave the order that the bird's word would only take effect if the bird delivers the message before the chameleon does. Well, unfortunately, when the bird reached the earth, the chameleon had just started giving the main part of the message. The bird immediately cut him off, asking what it is he was telling the people, and that was enough to trick the chameleon into starting the message all over again, which in turn gave the bird all the time in the world to deliver its message. It said the following to the humans: Ngai has instructed me to tell you that from today onwards, when you die, you won't be able to come back. And when it was done, it simply flew away. These words sealed the fate of man. And even though the chameleon tried giving his contradicting message, thinking the bird might have been a fraud, nothing was going to change. This left the chameleon humiliated and feeling guilty because he could not deliver his message soon enough. And from that day henceforth, people that died did not return to earth. Even worse, the chameleon became the #1 enemy of the people. And whenever they saw it, they despised and mocked it, saying, "May you grow thin and thinner, and let me grow fat and healthy." From that day, the chameleon slowly grew thin and wasted away. In regards to life after death, the Kikuyu community mainly believes that an alternate universe exists in the same lines as our own universe. And when every living thing passes away in our universe, its spirit simply transitions to the second universe. In addition to that, the Kikuyu also believe that spirits from the alternate universe have access to our universe, but we do not have access to theirs. And the community also remembers the dead by naming their children after them. As you can see from the Kikuyu creation myth, the story is much more concerned with the creation of human beings more than it is with larger issues such as cosmology or the creation of the universe. It's also notable for its monotheistic vision of Ngai, the supreme god that lives in the skies and only visits the earth from time to time. The other central figures in the story are the parents of the tribe, Kikuyu and Mumbi. That's it for today. If you like the content, kindly do not forget to smash the like button below. This will help the channel grow and allow me to make more videos in the future. Also, if you have a topic you think I should cover, do not hesitate to leave a comment below. Thank you and see you again next week.